My relatives commanded me to prepare meals for 37 visitors. During the holiday season, rather than complying, I refused, reserved a plane ticket to France, and abandoned them to deal with a barren cooking area by themselves. I came into this world as a helper, but this Yuletide, I discovered the art of being absent. My name is Adrian. I'm the eldest sibling, the person who repairs the printing machine, cleans the baking tray, and recalls the trash collection schedule. In my job at a lodging establishment, I manage reception tasks like organizing timetables, coordinating gatherings, and arranging seating layouts. I favor checklists with tick boxes, cabinets that shut fully, and bills that align precisely with my buys. My parents label me as reliable. If you inquire from my perspective, I'm the individual who maintains the illumination while everyone else relishes the space. My sibling, Selene, is 26 years old. She's the sparkle, imaginative, lively, and bound for success. She messages with enthusiasm marks but seldom fully powers her device. We matured in a compact, lively setting where assistance equaled performing tasks and kinship involved compensating for it. Selene constantly attracted a group. I perpetually held a cleaning cloth. As children, when our mother entertained guests, I arranged dishes and erased smudges from the refrigerator, whereas Selene experimented with clothes in our guardian's chamber and arrived right before the end. Upon securing my initial employment, my dad billed me $170 for residence. When Selene acquired hers, her mom suggested her to simply concentrate on aspirations. The 12th month is hectic at the inn. We organize numerous corporate celebrations and a couple of fundraising events. My schedule for that period is a chart with shaded sections and a pause noted humorously. This season, I highlighted a single date, the day after the holiday, since it belonged to me. For the initial occasion, I had accumulated 3 vacation days in a row. I craved tranquility. I yearned to rise without obligations. A day prior to the festivity, I stopped by my parents' place carrying a container of treats from the lodge's pastry section. Mom occupied the cooking space, dressed in my exercise top. Dad had the sports match silenced. Selene lounged on the sofa, legs folded beneath her, browsing online. Mom welcomed me with that cheerful inflection she uses when a scheme is already in motion. "Excellent arrival," she stated. "Your sister's companions are joining us for the holiday, merely 37 individuals." I chuckled since occasionally the sole noise possible is an error. 37. Selene grinned without lifting her gaze. "It's essentially my entire artistic circle, including extras," she mentioned. "Atmosphere." Mom started retrieving the big baking vessel. "We'll arrange areas," she described. "Snack platter, slicing spot, sweet section." "You can manage the sequence." Me, I questioned, as though I were an outsider in this talk. "Clearly you," Dad answered, focused on the screen. "You're skilled in this." Mom was already enumerating. "We require seats. We need additional frozen water. We need a meat-free choice. You'll oversee the poultry, the pork, the fish. Oh, inquire at your workplace if you can loan warming devices, and Selene wants a non-alcoholic drink station, plus there's someone avoiding wheat." "And 2 avoiding wheat," Selene added while still scanning. Mom offered me a clear grin. "No concerns," she remarked. "Mature males don't require gift unwrapping. They must accept duties," Dad commented without glancing. "Adapt to structure, boy. You have a full day." My lips shaped the small grin that emerges when I wish to decline, but the setting anticipates agreement. The cooking area was illuminated. The surface was spotless. When Mom placed the baking vessel, the steel produced a chime-like noise. I glanced at the cooler, where Mom had attached a note saying menu with an empty space below, as a challenge. I sensed a roster trying to enter my mind and nestle in. 37, I repeated. Just, Mom responded. Selene captured an image of the vacant chopping surface as if it marked the start of a culinary program. "Holiday material," she clarified. I set the treats on the surface. I inhaled deeply, wishing nobody noticed. And I stated plainly, understood. I didn't object, not there, not at that moment. I moved to the basin, activated the faucet, and observed it warm up. The spout whispered like a hidden truth. The spark wasn't a yell, it was a grin, it was merely 37. It was how my identity had already been inscribed on a vacant list at a residence I no longer occupied. I dried my palms with a cloth that perpetually scents like citrus detergent and placed the treats in the storage. Nobody inquired what I desired for the holiday. They never have. Somebody ought to have. My position at the inn is Deputy Occasion Coordinator. Within my kin, it signifies gratis work with politeness. It began modestly. At 12, I prepared stuffed eggs since you're precise with your fingers. By 16, I was barbecuing for 20 since you're adept at pacing. By 20, I knew Mom's storage spot for spare linens and how to stabilize a collapsible stand without shaking. Your innate, Mom would declare, as if she'd unearthed me. Funds typically emerged under a fresh guise. Dad called it training when he subtracted $170 from my casual earnings for lodging and meals. Mom called it aiding when she included me on the household communication package and then omitted switching her payment method after I covered 2 straight periods. Celine messaged, "Can you lend me $83? The Cosmos will repay it. The Cosmos never has." There were moments that lingered like reruns. My final school year celebration overlapped with Celine's debut collection display. I installed illumination, transported frozen blocks, and was directed to relocate my own dessert to accommodate her illumination device. When I earned an advancement at the inn, I delivered sparkling wine. Mom extended past the container and commented, "Wonderful, you can now purchase those fresh eating seats." We did. I contributed, Dad stated. A mail supplies. Like furnishings, it was an exam I discovered belatedly. The kin messaging group is a flurry of directives. Adrian, can you collect Aunt Clara at 4? Adrian, bulk store trip. Adrian, reservation for 12 people. I mastered replying with approval icons or ignoring. When I didn't acknowledge, my mom would message, "Don't be distant," then contact the inn. Just dropping in and prompt my supervisor to cue me about our major kin gathering. My supervisor would beam kindly and deliver the note as if it were a bloom with a spike. Celine navigated it all like a float. She gently introduced 3 ventures but didn't fully launch any. A scent product line, temporary meals, and a visual board-oriented audio show. She received a rented vehicle for protection, and she wept when her dad informed her she had to cover protection costs. "It's exploitative," she described. I observed Dad transform exploitative into a narrative about how society mistreats creators unjustly. He directed me to create space. What will you create space for? For which person? For the addition of my sibling that solely exists in descriptions. Last holiday, I prepared for 18 since grandmother couldn't manage anymore. I compiled a shopping roster, covered surplus which turned standard, and cut my finger when the sharp blade met the wrong position. Mom dabbed the injury with a cleaning fabric and inquired, "Are you fine?" She didn't halt. Neither did either of us. We presented at 5. In spring, Celine organized a goal meal for 12 attendees and utilized my introduction to lease heating units. "You can deliver them," she stated. "You understand assembly." Afterward, she posted a picture of my palms in a shot with the label, "Thankful for Network." I got 2 inquiries from unknowns asking if I provided services. I answered no, and got a 3rd from Mom. We might turn this into an enterprise. Spring was when we debated housing costs. "See squandering funds," Dad remarked. "Relocate home." "Conserve." He uttered conserve as if it signified identically for all. Our dwelling had 1 washroom and 3 individuals who never tapped. I remained in my single-room unit with noisy boards and quietness. I compensated for it. I ingested their dissatisfaction like a capsule sans liquid. Warm months were peak for the lodging. Each weekend featured a duo with flame focal points and a music selector who thought loudness meant affection. I acquired a travel bag with my extra hours compensation. I formed a directory called Away with images, inventories, and costs. Not due to loathing my kin, but since I wished to feel what it's like in a location where nobody recognizes my surname. By autumn, Mom's inquiries had evolved from "Can you" to mandate. She forwarded a digital document named Holiday Strategy. The opening wasn't attendees, but dishes, Adrian beneath funds. She noted, "We'll converse," which implies you fund and we overlook. Then the merely 37 arrived. Celine's associates, Celine's circle, individuals called Woodland, Melody, Herb, and 1 fellow using abbreviations. Mom created a desire inventory like a visual site with vitality. Imagine the appeal she appended. "Will require leased seats, 37 covers, 7 spare dishes you can obtain from the inn. Nobody will detect," she described. I stated they will. She dismissed it. "It's the time of year." Dad observed, "We need a unique beverage. You handle those, correct? Not overly sugary. Employ that fine frozen cubes, and you could handle the bulk store visit. Your payment method earns rewards." Celine contributed. "No milk products, no bean derivatives, no seeds, no certain veggies, but ensure it's warm." I observed them and noted its form. At dawn, I would be baking 2 birds, cutting produce, and messaging colleagues to locate an extra warming light. I grip a stopwatch in one palm and a spoon in the other. Me at evening, removing waste while Celine filmed a What an Evening Tale, and Mom remarked, "We accomplished that." Then Mom included the ultimate touch. "And you'll submit the payment for the shelter today?" she queried, as if climate was my responsibility. "It's merely $900 to reserve." Merely, Dad echoed. He drew that term like a small blade and utilized it to tidy his fingers. "Who reimburses me?" I asked. The area quieted as if I'd yelled an insult. Mom responded initially. "Avoid being calculative," she stated. "It's unattractive. This is kin." Dad remarked, "We're assigning you a task. You ought to appreciate it." "What do I appreciate?" "Serving as personnel for my own kin," I ingested. I agreed. I agreed because that's my habit when thoughts race and speech prefers silence. That evening, I accessed the away directory and viewed an image I'd preserved of a dull road with a pastry shop at the intersection and a Azure entrance. I stared until my posture relaxed. I didn't reveal to anyone the directory's contents. It wasn't concealed. It was a boundary that hadn't mastered expression yet. The discussion occurred the following dawn because Mom favors discussions. She possessed a reproduced plan with squares and the title Holiday Sequence. Dad used his instructor tone. Celine had her device in self-portrait setting, prepared for insider views. We positioned at the eating surface. The baking vessel shone from the ledge like an unearned award. Mom initiated. "All right, Adrian, you'll purchase this evening. 2 birds, 1 pork, fish piece for the seafood eaters, plant area for the herbivore folks. We'll assemble the leased seats at midday tomorrow. You can retrieve them at morning." And I declined. It wasn't noisy. It was precise. 3 faces pivoted. Celine's device paused. Mom fluttered her eyelids, her grin locked like a frozen display. "What? No," I restated. "I'm not servicing your gathering." Dad reclined. "Mind your manner. This is my manner," I stated serenely. Celine chuckled, the harsh type. "You're kidding," she responded. "I'm not," I affirmed. "I'm not your cook. I'm not your leader. I'm not your leasing profile. I'm your offspring. I'm Celine's kin." Mom's tone turned sweet. "Darling, we're kin. We appear, I stated. "I've appeared for ages. I've appeared with my limbs and my funds." Dad tightened his mouth. "A male supplies, I understand," I ended. "I've absorbed that from 15. Here's mine. A male establishes boundaries. I'm not preparing holiday for 37 of Celine's associates. I'm not funding payments. I'm not obtaining warmers. I'm not jeopardizing my position for your event." Celine glared at me. "So what? We simply postpone." "You'll shame me?" "No," I answered. "You'll conduct your event with your assets." "Adrian," Mom barked. "Now you hear my actual tone, the one with sharpness. Don't spoil the festivity." I held her stare. "I'm not spoiling it. I'm withdrawing from being your worker." Dad struck his hand on the surface. Utensils jumped. "We won't tolerate disrespect in our dwelling." I rose. My limbs felt truly mine. "Then honor me in your dwelling." Mom grasped the ultimate control. "After all we've provided for you." I agreed. "I know, you nurtured me, you nourished me. And from 16, I gave you $170 monthly for the honor. I included you on my communication package. I handled supplies when your payment failed. I managed your events. I transported grandmother to visits. I adore you. I'm finished as your gratis staffer." Celine's tone cracked into a cry. "You're envious," she stated. "Folks favor me." "I favor you," I admitted. "I dislike being exploited." Dad's face reddened. "If you exit, skip tomorrow. You're excluded from the holiday." Excluded. As if I were an adolescent seeking the vehicle. I glanced at Celine's device screen, which was dark and smooth. I glanced at Mom's plan. I glanced at the baking vessel. "This isn't retribution," I clarified. "This is resolution," they gaped. The phrases sat amid the surface like a cup of liquid nobody desired to contact. "What does that signify?" Celine questioned. "It signifies I'm ending the part you assign me," I informed. "You can rage. You can proceed, you can abort. I'm not your fix." Mom rose. "If you depart, you're egocentric." "If I remain, I'm a subordinate," I stated. "I select egocentric." Dad gestured to the exit. "Depart then." "All right," I stated. I didn't crash anything. I proceeded to the entryway. I gathered my jacket. I retrieved the treats I'd delivered from the storage, aware they'd be reused without consent. Celine uttered something including my name, nearly like an oath. Mom declared he'll return. I pivoted at the entrance. "Grandmother's handled," I stated. I already organized her transport for holiday dawn and a meal booking for 2 at midday. She won't attend regardless. 2, Mom retorted. "With whom?" "With anyone who arrives for her," I concluded. "You're welcome." Dad sneered. "We have visitors." "I know," I answered. I exited into the chill, gently shut the entrance, and activated silent mode on my device in the path. The heavens were a plain, cold azure that made all appear truthful. I positioned in my vehicle, observing the vapor from my exhalation vanish. This occasion, departing wasn't turmoil. It was an entrance that sealed fully on initial push. I didn't recite a monologue to my device. I executed actions. At residence, I launched my computer and the directory named away. There was a verification message from weeks prior, positioned above, like a quiet affirmation. Back and forth to France. Late-night departure from our town at nearly midnight. Arrival on the 28th. Lodging reserved via rewards. I'd conserved throughout the year, stored gratuities in a jar. Additional shifts, meals made domestically. The pass was a present to myself. I hadn't disclosed since in my kin, information joins the collective dialogue before it contacts you. I registered. I selected a view spot. I reproduced the entry document since physical calms me. Reactivated the device. There are 12 unanswered rings. 3 from Mom, 2 from Dad, 7 from Celine. The messages accumulated. Mom, you are acting vulgar. Dad, mature. Celine, you're wrecking my occasion. Mom, we'll discuss at 6. Arrive. Dad, unchangeable. I didn't depart at 6. I packed a small bag with 3 tops, 2 trousers, foot covers, a book, my travel document, and a roster of pastry places I aimed to explore. I nourished my adjacent resident's pet early, sent her an image, and gave a duplicate access in exchange for tending my greenery. At early evening, Mom rang. I allowed it to sound. At shortly after, Dad rang. I allowed it to sound. At later, Celine composes in bold, all depend on you. I dispatched one message. I'm not managing your event. At evening, I summoned transport to the airfield. At later, I adjusted my device to silent for all except grandmother and the carrier. At nearly 10, I got an alert. Celine has tagged you in a social tale. I didn't select. At early night, a message from the shelter leasing firm. Hello, Adrian, confirming we hold temporarily. Please finalize payment by evening to confirm. I viewed Mom's note and responded, please cancel. I won't fund or retrieve. Mom answered shortly. Are you ill? At later, a reply from the leasing firm. Canceled as asked. At evening, I contacted grandmother. I'm departing for several days, I declared. Your transport is for late morning on the 25th, meal at midday, reference is 48,271. They recall you prefer the view spot. She laughed. You always possessed organization, she answered. Go observe what you desire. At nearly midnight, the aircraft lifts and the device is silent. The town diminished like a tangled talk. I didn't need to conclude. I rested unevenly and wonderfully simultaneously. I rose to a faint pattern of lands, considering I'd recovered my personal hours. When I activated my device post-arrival, it exploded. 39 unanswered rings. 112 messages. A fresh collective dialogue named Crisis Immediately. The feed resembled a screenplay. When initial attendees reached my parents' dwelling, the cooking space remained empty, surfaces clear, heating units cold, nothing arranged. Mom's grin vanished. Her expression paled as she grasped no meals were set, only a group awaiting provision. Evening, Mom, where are you? Shortly after, Celine, we require access to the venue space. Later, Dad, answer your device later. Mother, the poultry remains solid. Half hour, Celine, you are harming my image. Later, Mom, Adrian, act responsibly. Later, Dad, we won't forget this. Evening, unknown, I'm sage, is there grain? Shortly after. Mom, fine, respond later. Celine, I told all you experienced a collapse. Later, Mom,